a lot of context or they've got it wrong. And I'll show you what I mean. So once I start up a new project, you can see under geometry contexts, it automatically sets up. Oh, wow, that's no good. That needs to be fixed. That's a bug. I've got two plan views. That's really no good. But as you can see, it sets up a context to store geometry, plan geometry, and in particular annotation geometry for sections, annotation for plans, annotations for elevations. That's obviously a bug. I'll need to take a look at that. So if I go and draw a wall, so that's my wall, it automatically has geometry associated with it as a swept solid, which is nice and efficient. So if your walls are all meshes, it will make the drawing generation slower. So things like that are things to take into consideration. So once we have a wall, let's go and I'll just make that wall a bit bigger. I will maybe draw a couple more walls. And in one of these walls, I will insert a door, and we'll pick the demo 1 door. So what I did just there, I'll just slow down a little bit, is I have a bunch of snaps turned on. I can use Shift-Tab to toggle the snaps. And with it on, I can have my 3D cursor, as you can see, snapping to things. So if I click on this wall, have my 3D cursor snap somewhere on that wall, and do Shift-A, it adds a door automatically inside the wall. You can see all of the hotkeys here for this BIM tool. But basically it's Shift-A, the same way you'll add objects in Blender. It's nothing too special about it. So Shift-O is to add an opening. So if I place my cursor here and I do Shift-O, you can see I've now added an opening into that wall. It's not very useful, that opening. More useful would be a window. So if I have a window, so I'll select my window. Again, I have my Shift-A somewhere on this wall over there, and it's added in the window into the wall. Great. So I'll just move that window wherever I want it to be. So now that I've got a few objects, the good thing about this built-in library is that, as you can see, whereas the wall just has a swept solid representation, and of course its bounding box, this one has a 2D representation as well associated with it. And if I go into top view, you can see, if I change to 2D, you can see the swing associated with it. And I'll switch back to the 3D view of the door. So same with the window. It has a little 2D symbol over there. And because it's 2D, it inserts at the object origin. So that origin circle is pretty important to pay attention to. Because it's 2D, right? It doesn't know where it needs to go. So yeah, so once you have that, and you have a window and a door, then it's time to add some drawings. So if I go into BlenderBIM, BIM documentation. So at the moment, we have 0 drawings. So everything's in IFC so far, nothing special so far. And if I go and load up my 0 drawings, I can add a new drawing. If I choose plan, I can choose either the origin, which is over here, or add a story. So I've only got 1 story in my building, so it just shows my story. If I had more than 1, it'd show more than 1. So you can add a plan at whatever story. So we'll press plus, and that automatically adds it at 1 meter above. Sorry, it's very metric centric, some of these defaults, above the story. So my story, as you can see, is located there, and therefore 1 meter above is this. So that creates this object, which is an IFC annotation object of a type called drawing. It automatically gives it a name called My Story Plan. If it was, level 1, it would call it level 1 plan, level 2 plan, and so on. And it's got a couple of properties of telling what type of view, what type of geometry is interested in this case, plan geometry, and the scale. This is the computer scale. This is how a human would read that scale, and then a couple of settings. So we'll go over those settings shortly, but to start with, here we go. That's a plan. So you can press this activate view, which will go into that view. Currently it's 1 to 100, and it's zoomed out pretty far. So we'll go into the camera settings, and we'll shift the orthographic scale to zoom it a little bit in. Then I can press the G key to pan around, basically moving my camera in 3D space, and center my walls. So once that looks good, I just press this button here, which spits out my drawing. So the logic behind this drawing is that it does a few things. The first thing it does is that a drawing is composed of 3 layers. It's composed of an underlay, a line work layer, and an annotation layer. An underlay is like a background image. So that's if you have shading, rendering, lighting effects, shadows, all of that. That goes in your underlay. Currently, it's disabled because you don't need that for the majority of construction drawings. But if you're doing a fancy drawing, that's when you'll enable it. The line work layer is all of the stuff that's cut or derived from model elements. So if you have, if an element like this wall is intersecting with your plan, it gets cut and it turns up as part of the line work layer. And so if I click on this, which disables that layer and regenerates it, I get blank, right? Because there's nothing. There's no more. Whereas I'll enable it again and regenerate it. Here we go. Here is my line work back. So the thing about this, every drawing has a target view. So the target view is the type of geometry it prioritizes. In this case, it prioritizes a plan view geometry. So in the case of this wall, there is no plan view geometry, as you can see here. It only has body geometry. So it will just take the body of the shape, in which case it's this kind of cuboid, and it will cut it. Whereas this door, it does have plan view geometry. So it says, hey, you have a plan view. In that case, I'm not going to bother cutting that door. I'm just going to show whatever symbol you've already provided with your door asset, and just display that instead. So that's a great way to, in fact, that's a recommended way to show complex shapes, in that instead of having to recalculate exactly the cut of it, you just give that symbol. I mean, similar to, especially lots of furniture, like tables, chairs, toilets. I mean, no one ever draws a section of a toilet. You don't cut through it. It doesn't make any sense. You just show the symbol of that toilet, and so on. So that's the plan view. Sorry, the target view, which is pretty important. Finally, after that, if I go back into this drawing, the third layer is the annotation layer. And the annotation layer are things like annotation, like dimensions and angles and radiuses and so on. So all I have to do is press dimension, and it will pop up a dimension on my screen. It will use your project units by default. In this case, it's meters. So I will rotate that. And in this case, I will just quickly arbitrarily dimension some things. And there we go. So we have a couple of dimensions in. And if I recreate that, you can see the dimensions come through. And currently, I've got a little bit of code which makes this millimeters just on my machine, but it should come through in whatever your unit is on your machine. And if I go back into my my drawing settings, and if I disable the annotation layer and create the drawing, you can see the annotations have now disappeared. And the understanding of these 3 layers is important because sometimes it takes a long time to calculate these underlying layers. So what I'd often do right now is I generate the underlay and line work, and then I would just lock those. I would press this button, say use the cache, which means don't recalculate it. And then I would go and move around the annotations, and because that's typically the workflow. You'd spend a lot of time just shuffling around annotating things, and you don't need to recut your entire drawing every single time. It's a waste of time. And if you enable that little cache, well, you can almost not tell because it's such a tiny model, but it's instant. It's basically instant to get the results. So it's a good thing to do. So there are a few objects which are special. So grids are a special object. So if I don't want to add a window. I'll need to get out of that BIM authoring mode. And I will add a IFC grid. So now I've got some grids over here. So let's just, I'll draw a couple more walls so we get a fun shape going on here. I'll enable my snap. Let's join those two walls. Let's extend that to there and rotate that wall and join that. Okay, great. So now I've closed off shape, so I can go and move these grid lines over here and move that grid line over here and over here. So you'll notice I've just moved the grids, but the extents of the grids are still way outside my drawing, and that's okay. So now if I reactivate my drawing, I've now added in some grids. You can see it's automatically generated grid annotations for my drawing. And not only has it automatically generated it, it's automatically clipped it to my drawing boundary, right? Because the original grid is kind of very far away. But now let's, oops, don't want to move that grid. Let's take my grids, and now let's fix that, and let's move it closer. And let's say stop it there. Let's say my building is only that big. So take those 3 grid lines, move it in. So you can see my grid lines now stop here, whereas it previously got cropped there. If I reactivate it, you can see it's auto-updated. So it auto-refreshes. If you change the original grid, the annotation of that grid changes. So these are 2 separate objects. One object is the grid object. The other object is the annotation of that grid. And this is quite a regular concept because the way you annotate something doesn't necessarily 100% reflect its true nature. So, for example, a grid may extend out very, very far, but just for this drawing, I want to only show the grid extending up to here for clarity, for whatever reason. So hopefully that makes, feel free to jump in any time if any of this just makes no sense at all. But hopefully so far it's making some sense. So I'll grab this grid axis and let's pull that out a little bit more just to make it nicer. And let's pull that out a little bit more. I'm using snaps a lot. Oh, I missed that one. There we go. And in my view, that looks a little nicer. And there we go. So grids automatically have the grids and the bubbles show up, and all of this, you don't really need to think about the styles of these. They should at least be based on millimeters and have I've coded it to Australian drafting conventions, but it should be pretty okay anywhere in the world. But if you have bugs, we'll take a look at that in detail. So if I change that to 1 to 50, which is going to make it a bit bigger, and I regenerate that. Ooh, hold on. See what happened there? So what happened is I had my cache enabled for my line work. It didn't update the line work. So I'm going to disable the cache, and this will recalculate it. So now I have my better drawing. So I will re-enable the cache there because I'm not too interested in that cache right now. So now let's say I want to create a new elevation. So let's say we want to create an elevation somewhere over here. So I'll place my 3D cursor over here, and I'll choose elevation, and we'll say this is going to be a south elevation. Is that right? Yes, this is the building's south elevation, which means it points north. Yes. Okay, so I'll press plus, and you can see we automatically have our elevation symbol. Currently, you don't see the number of the elevation in there. That's okay. We'll talk about sheets and numbers later on, but that will come. But you can see my elevation symbol is there. And I'll jump into my elevation view. And you can see my elevation has also auto-generated the grid annotations. It knows that for, oops, my scroll bar went crazy there. It knows that for for elevations, annotations go up the page. So I can just go and scale that down. There we go. So we'll just resize it to my building. Or I could have just scaled my drawing. That's more sensible. So let's make that up to my drawing extents, and we'll take the auto-generated level marker and we'll scale that down as well. So if I had more building stories, the the story markers would all auto-generate as well. So it's all done for you. So we'll take that and we'll take our drawing. And that doesn't look very good. Sorry. Again, I had this cache enabled. Maybe I shouldn't enable that cache. So what you saw just now was a old drawing I had lying around. So you can see it's auto got my store, which is cut off. So maybe I need to either move this or both, and then that will show up my story. So yeah, and if I move the grids or if I move the story, all of that will all auto recalculate, which is neat. Yeah, okay. Yes. Yeah, good question. And I'm a bit surprised that that triangulation is showing up because it shouldn't. So let me just limited dissolve that. And now we have a nicer looking window. I think if I just limited dissolve that, now we'll have a nicer looking door. So correct. Yes, so over here, if I want to add my own elevation annotation, so you can see this elevation has an elevation view of the target. So if I go to this window, for example, if I want to add a new plan, is it plan annotation? I think this is I want it to be a I think, I thought I had built this. Maybe I didn't. I need to add an annotation. This is an elevation. Okay. So the reason why I'm adding it here and not using this is because this is 2D and so can only appear flat. And so I won't actually see it. So I need to kind of rotate it, if that makes any sense at all. So if I go over here and if I add my elevation view, so now I have my new elevation view and that's my shape currently. So let's just delete those two edges and let's just collapse by distance. Oh, I have an edge there. So let's say I had this type of annotation going on. Then let's see if that comes up. Hey, look at that. Fancy. It's still missing a lot of controls. Like that was really nasty. By default, it should have all of these built into your asset library, so it just works. And there should also be different line styles, like whether this is dashed or not. So there's still a lot of work to do. But it's a start. I mean, another really hackish way you can do is by using these things. So for example, I can create a hidden line, which is a dashed line. And so if I change this to my view, then I can go and do things like this and draw in my own annotation on top. And this is kind of like the old pre-BIM era way of annotating things in AutoCAD. And you can do it. And there's a lot of tools right now, CAD tools, which let you trim and extend and do all that if you want to. But yeah, it's a bit sad that sometimes you have to do that, and I really don't like that. But unfortunately, that's the current state of features. It just is pretty terrible like that. Yeah, so that's how you create your own symbols. And if you have a door like this, you can create any random text that you want. So if I just have arbitrary texts, it'll just show like that text. and I can go into here and I can press enable editing text and I can say ASDF, and you can see now it says ASDF. The text can also tag objects. So if I had a description of this door, for example, do I don't know, existing door or something like that, I can now intelligently link this to that. So I can say that this is related to this door. And now I can say that instead of a hard-coded thing, I want to put in a description attribute, or you can reference any property you want. So you press edit, and now we have it saying existing door. So this is a dumb text just floating around. You can see the result there. But sometimes it's better to have a leader text, because then it can actually point to things, which is cool. Which is exactly the same as a text object. It's just that it has an arrow associated with it, and all the controls here, the way to relate it to things, are also all the same. There is a bulk tagging feature somewhere that I don't know where I put it. Huh. I think, what happens if I press edit? Okay, there used to be a way I could bulk tag. So you'd click a bunch of objects, like I select all doors, and you'd say tag, and it would insert something with the tag, or you'd select one annotation, you type this in, and then you could propagate it to a bunch of annotations with associated objects. But I can't find how to do it right now. Yeah, I'll have to take a look at that. Yes, so a couple of other things here. There are two types of levels. There's plan levels and section levels. So section levels are used in sections or elevations. So these are, if I just rotate that so it's a bit more sensible. So if I want to have my window sill direction, I could show that. Let's just line that up. And you can see it's auto-calculated the RL. If I move it upward, up, ooh, there we go, up, it just auto-calculates it. And I can, by default, it just shows an RL. Maybe I'll move that up, or I'll decrease. I'll make this 1 to 50 so it's easier to see. There we go. But you can also annotate these types of things. So if I had my section level, I can give it a description of that. So I can say sill height, and that will automatically annotate that thing that I'm trying to give an RL to. So the description will always appear. What else? What else? What else? So it's similar in plans. So I can have, I've shown you hidden lines. I've shown you text and leaders. Radiuses are just that, if I had a radius. So, and same with diameter, if I had a diameter of a thing. So I'll give that as an example. And if I want to draw an arbitrary line, so here is an arbitrary line. So lines, you can enable this CAD tool, and it has extend, miter, fillet, offset. So this is your 2D drafting toolkit. So if I had two lines here like that, I can click one, click the other, and hit extend, or I can miter. So that's just kind of, yeah, just standard drafting tools. Or I can fillet, and I can choose the radius. Hey, look at that, it crashed. Hey, there we go. It was inevitable, wasn't it? So I didn't save any of that at all. So we'll just shortcut a few things. Those CAD features are a bit buggy still, and I do want to work on them, but they're pretty good for drafting details. So if let's say I joined those and I had or let's just draw a few lines, I can go and select 2 and fill it. There we go. Now that's working. So this is currently in, again, meters, unfortunately. Fill it. There we go. I think I can select a bunch all at once as well. I can also do 2-point arc, which I think from memory is you choose 2 points and a center line, and then I can do Shift C, which converts that into arc. I can specify the arc resolution. So that's really good if you have this type of thing going on and you want to say, all right, let's get this angle or this arc. You can convert it. So in fact, I'll just do a quick example here. So we'll do that. So that's 2 points. We'll say this is the third and do a 2-point arc, and there you go. So this is the arc which intersects with that line, wherever that line happens to be. There's also a 3-point arc, which is pretty obvious, as the name suggests. You take 3 points and you get your arc from that. So this is the arc which represents those 3 points. They're all circular arcs. And so let's say this is our beautiful drawing. Where are we now? You can create a plan. Yeah, I guess this will do. I thought I added a... okay, that'll do, I guess. All these will show up in your drawing. Oops. Why is it not showing up in my drawing? That's because they are not an IFC object. So of course it's not in my drawing. I was just drawing lines. I wasn't actually drawing annotation stuff. So I should have created my drawing first and then added an annotation this way, but now I'm just going to manually create that annotation. And maybe I shouldn't have. Sorry guys. I'll just draw in a few random lines here. There we go. That's how it goes in. So I actually have a sample file which has some of these features already shown. Untitled. Hey, yeah, lucky me. So you can see a plan you've seen already, which looks like that. And this is me drawing a circle and annotating the radius. This is the text tool which you've seen, which links to the related. Oh, this one doesn't have related object. Which one? One of these has a related object. This one. So this is tagging the material of the slab. Symbols can also have a. If I create this, oh yes, you can also have symbols associated with it. So this guy has a pset annotation symbol called door tag, and this is all part of your CSS library. So if you have a CSS symbol called door tag, then this text will automatically have that door tag symbol associated. I'll show you what that looks like in CSS. So if I look at the CSS, that's my door tag symbol, which is a circle with a line in the middle of it. And you can see that this U says that next to this text, we should show this door tag. So hopefully, does that make some sense? And this drawing has a few more features, like I've got a couple of section markers and elevation markers, and you can see the section markers and elevation markers there. And when you place it on a drawing, it will automatically update with the drawing number and the whatever this number is, the sheet number and the drawing number. So yeah, we were going through details before. So a detail is simply a drawing, if I enable that, where this guy over here has the line work turned off. So it's purely an annotation view because it's just a detailed drawing. You can have it where, in the correct place in 3D space. You don't have to have it in that correct place. That's just a nice thing. But effectively, a detailed drawing is just a drawing which is annotation enabled. These are just simple things. They're just fill areas. They're just filled regions with, in other words, they're boxes, they're planes. So this is a Blender plane. You can see that's the plane in Blender. It has a name or an object type. You can put any attribute you want on these. And once you set that in your drawing settings, where is it? Oh, maybe this isn't the latest one. Okay, so in your drawing settings here, oh yeah. Oh, okay, I know what I've done here. You can specify your own CSS style sheet, markers, symbols, and patterns, and any metadata you want to include. So what that means is that when I create a drawing like this, inside the SVG, you can see how you have the paths of every single one of these lines or rectangles or whatever. And with that, it automatically comes with a class for the CSS classes for the global ID, the ISE type, and the predefined type. So you can see how this object had a predefined type of hatch3, which means that it comes through here as that predefined hatch3, which I can then select in my CSS definition. I want hatch3 things to be filled with a diagonal stroke, a diagonal fill, and no stroke outline. So that's how I end up getting this result. And it's the same with all the other. So that was this hatch here. You can see there is no outline on it, and it does have diagonal fills. It's not very fancy. It's just kind of old school, putting in line work and setting styles on the line work. And I'll show you one more example, which is this roof detail over here. And it's exactly the same thing. It's all just a bunch of regular Blender edges, which I use the CAD tool while saving a lot because the CAD tool is a bit nasty and crashy, as you just saw. You need to toggle edit mode and object mode to prevent the crashes, which I forgot right now. And yeah, so each one of these things, you can see I've got a couple of layers here. I've got miscellaneous line work. I have background line work, like thin things. I have stud layers, and they all get different thicknesses, which end up in this result. Yeah. Yeah, so these are CSS hatches. So everything in CSS you can see is all defined over here. So here's how my insulation batting is defined. Here's some markers. Then I have rectangle tags, section tags. Here are all my patterns. So here's my steel hatch. Here's my diagonal one hatch, and so on. So everything you see here is everything in paper space. It's fixed in millimeters. Sorry, the Imperial users. It's just that's the way it is. Underneath the hood, it's all in millimeters. So if I say that this is a 1 millimeter, 1 millimeter, that means these diagonal lines are 1 millimeter apart. This is a 2 millimeter apart diagonal line. This is a 3 millimeter apart diagonal line, and so on. So hatch 3, which would use diagonal 3, means that these, this one here, this is exactly 3 millimeters apart on paper. If I took out a ruler and measured it, that's what it would be. There's a whole bunch of these symbols already shipped with BlenderBIM. You don't need to reinvent them. All the standard ones like hatch, diagonal, crosshatch, concrete, wood, sand, insulation, batting, that type of stuff. It's all already built in, so you don't really need to do anything. You just have to, I guess, know the names. So in the names, you'll find shipped with BlenderBIM. BIM data styles. So you can see this is the CSS styles that comes with it. So this says that anything which is this, which has a material of this, will use that by default. But you can edit this, and you should edit this for your projects at the moment. There's no UI for this at the moment. This is pure CSS. And the idea is that you'll come up with a convention you like, and you'll just stick to it. And that'll be just a project-wide setting. Then you'll also have where is it? Preset styles, templates. Okay, so under templates, you can see markers. So this is every single, like arrowheads are all defined here. The arrowheads, dimension ticks, radius, start and end. So if you want a dot on it, or stair arrows, you want a big arrow, a dot, you want your plan level to have a certain style. It's all customizable. None of it's hard coded. You can have your own style, and you can edit this with Inkscape. All of these are just Inkscape paths. So you can just draw a shape and copy the path code into here and give it a name. And just the convention is that it's all in millimeters. So this stair marker has a circle of a radius of 5 millimeters. Then you have all the patterns, so things like square patterns, crosshatches, earth, glass, liquid, grass, honeycomb, wood. Sand is big, of course. It's a bunch of random dots. Concrete is a big bunch of random dots. That will get you a long way. And symbols, which currently are things like your door tags, your elevation tags. So if you want a hexagon or a triangle or a rectangle, whatever your convention is, you can just throw it in here. And the same way you saw that door tag being referenced by specifying the symbol over here, it will reference it from your symbols file. What else have I missed? Oh, yes, another thing about these drawings, you can see this global referencing set to true. So global referencing means that this is a view that should be referenced in other views. So plans should generally be referenced in other things. So sections should be referenced in other things. Like if I cut a plan, this section should automatically be referenced, right? I expect that to pop up. I shouldn't be adding that manually. Whereas if I have weird 2D things, sometimes they exist outside the scope of a model. So let's say a wall detail. It's not a particular point in your model. It's just a generic wall detail. In that case, you would turn your global referencing to false. Does that kind of make sense? What else is there to show? I didn't show sheets. Sheets is pretty simple. At the moment, you've got a couple of pre-built title blocks. Again, it's all just SVG, so you can make up your own. So this is in sheets. No, not in sheets. Maybe it is in templates. Title blocks, hey. Right, so if I open up one of these title blocks, you can see this is a title block. That's all it is. It's literally just an Inkscape page, right? You could draw whatever lines, whatever design you want. There's a couple of conventions, like you use these to specify variables, which will then get replaced on the fly, these curly brackets. But other than that, it's totally up to you. You can use Inkscape or Illustrator or whatever you want. You put it in there. It will detect it as a sheet, so you add a new sheet. So now I have a new sheet. You can see it auto increments. So I've got this sheet over here, AO2, untitled. I can take whatever I want. I can take my plan. So I selected my plan. I select my sheet. And then I can choose to add my drawing to the sheet. And now if I create the sheet, you can see my drawing is on the sheet. Happy days. And it has my sheet number and title on the top, bottom left, bottom right. And it just kind of plonks it on there and auto-generates this with the scale and the number. So all this is stored in IFC. These sheets are, so these drawings are just IFC annotation objects, and these sheets are just documents in IFC. So if I go into the document panel, you can see I have 4 documents. I can load those 4 documents up. There's 1, 2, this is just a random document that's not related to a drawing. So a sheet is simply a document which has a scope called documentation. So this one over here is a schedule instead. So he is not a sheet, he is a schedule. So I can have schedules as well. Schedules are simply spreadsheets. That's all a schedule is. So you can use LibreOffice. You can create a spreadsheet however you want. If you want it to be a smart special spreadsheet using BIM data, you can use IFC CSV and generate your spreadsheet. Or if you want it to be a total manual spreadsheet, you can also do that. It doesn't care. It doesn't restrict you. It's just, as far from the point of view of IFC, it's just a spreadsheet file. And so you can see under schedules, that's the one spreadsheet I have over here. And then I can go and add that. If I select the spreadsheet, select this sheet, I can press this button to add a schedule to the sheet. Now I have it, and it overlaps right now. So I'll need to go in Inkscape and just shift that over. So in everything it generates is in a folder called Sheets. So I can open, what's this sheet called? AO2 Untitled. Okay, AO2 Untitled, great. So in Inkscape, I can just take that fellow and say, plonk it here and save. And now if I regenerate that, you can see it's moved. So you'll see the difference between what I edited here. It has these variables, like it's not yet calculated. Whereas this one here, it calculates it. So it's smart enough to know things like a schedule shouldn't have a scale. It makes no sense for a schedule to have a scale next to it. For the formatting of the schedule, you do that all using the open document format. So the spreadsheet, so you can see over here, this schedule is, I can open schedule. Hey, there we are. So I'll just open that with LibreOffice. So this is my schedule, and you can see I can set the column width to inches on my computer. Well, you type in millimeters or whatever you feel comfortable with. So you can do all your formatting in here, and it will just come up in SVG. Okay. Sorry, I kind of jumped here and there. I know there were some specific questions. Let me find the chat. And there's another error there. There's unlimited amount of errors. Okay, so this is the latest message. I will check this one out. And let's see how many of these I can answer. Where is the drawing stored? On the IFC. It's never stored in Blender. However, IFC does reference external SVGs. So if you're referencing a schedule like I just showed you, well, you need to have that SVG with it. If you're referencing a sheet, it's just a document reference, right? It needs to know that this sheet is actually referencing a title block called, which is a A3 SVG file. So you'll need to include those SVG files at the moment. At the moment, it's not yet stored here in the location field. It's just kind of calculated on the fly based off file names. But on my to-do list is to store that SVG reference explicitly here on the location. So that's the answer to that question. On the IFC with external references to schedules and SVG stuff. Almost all drawing data are now part of the native IFC dataset. Oh, sorry, I was wrong. Yes, that at the moment, rendering styles are part of Blender. So if I had a drawing like this model view, and you can see this one has an underlay. And that means that if I press go, you can see it has this fancy render at the back of it. So if I go into render view, that's what it's rendered. So I can change whatever these styles happen to be. So this is your Blender settings. Let's change go into here, change that. So let's say it's in EV. Okay, so if I wanted to, I can make it look like this. It's not very pretty. I should fix it up a little bit. Sure, why not? Fancy. All right, so there we go. So you can see that underlay. So this rendering setting, that's currently stored in Blender. It's not stored in IFC because it is a Blender-specific rendering setting. You choose whatever option you want. So let me just disable that, and now that will look slightly nicer. It still looks really, really ugly, though. Maybe turn on some shadows or who knows what. Anyway, you get the idea. Make that material. We'll turn on some cavity, turn on some shadows. Hey, so now I've set some stuff up. There we go. That's a nicer looking thing. So yes, answer to the question is that one is still part of Blender. Yes, so it is now working again. Great. Sheets, I think I've already shown that. Where is scaling found? Scaling is what you mean how big this view is. You can adjust the orthographic scale here. You can also change these settings here for how big the currently it shows it in pixels, which is kind of lame. It's basically if you're working on pixel-less things like a technical drawing, which is an actual scale drawing, then you wouldn't really use this. I'll need to change it so that it shows it in terms of like millimeters on real life or something like that. Whereas if you were doing something with an underlay, and pixels do matter, these represent pixel values. And drawing scale is over here, but this is just a drop-down for it. The data is actually stored in here in this property set called EP-set drawing. Federation. Drawing federation is not yet supported. You can federate a bunch of models, but currently it will only cut a single, your actively loaded drawing, unfortunately. It used to be supported, but at the moment it's not there. I think maybe just update the wiki for now. It's still very experimental, so just the existing drawing pages in the wiki would be a good place to put it. General proposed workflow. I have no idea. In my point of view, it's still incredibly incomplete. You can do some things on it, and I have done things with it. But it has a huge amount of work to be done to feel just, slick and easy, unfortunately. Cool. What have I missed? Anything? Hello? Anything else you want to see? You're saying get back to work, Dion. It's clearly still broken. Yeah, hey. No, you can't. You click, you click, you click, you click. It's terrible. I agree. Oh, I should mention a couple of other features. So let's go back to this view, and I'll turn on that line work so it's easier to see. What these things are. Metadata means to include extra data into the model. So for example, let's say I want QTO slab base quantities depth to be a parameter inside my SVG. So by default, if I create this and I search for QTO, nothing pops up. Whereas if I go into here, go into here and update this and say QTO slab base quantities, is it depth? And I have to remember here, is it a comma separated list, or I can't remember how I did it. We'll see if this works. And bah, that didn't work. Okay, maybe it needs to be comma separated. I'm not sure. You know what? Let's check the code. Let's see what the code says. But the point is that if you type in whatever data you want, you can have that data in your SVG, which will then allow you to select it by classes. So let's see. Enrich line work with metadata, get material. That's not the one I'm after. Or no caches on. Okay, I'll find it, but that's the intention of that. If we get some time, I'll find out and exactly how that works. The include and exclude is kind of like your filters if you only want certain things to show up. So if I only want IFC wall to be included, then I can do that. And now, hey, look at that. See, my walls are there. My rabbit has disappeared. My window and door has disappeared. So you can turn on and off various things. And that currently uses the same query syntax as CSV and Clash and all the rest of it. So really, we need to design a good interface that's ideally better than the Revit one, because the Revit one has like 200 checkboxes, and you just kind of have to learn it after a while. But right now, you got to write in a query. You can exclude things as well. So if I wanted everything except for wall, or you can put both include and exclude. You can do the same thing. And hey, what have I done wrong here? I don't know what I've done wrong. I've messed something up. Okay, got to figure out what that is. Maybe if I exclude door, will it be happy with that? No, it doesn't like it. All right. I'll see what's up with exclude. No, I've permanently broken it. Look at that. I've permanently broken it. That's no good. Let's start that again. Let's give that a shot. Yeah, I spelled it correctly, so that can't be the issue. Okay, that worked this time. I'll have to see what that is. But you can see now it's excluded my walls. My slab is still there. My window and door is still there. So that's how you do stuff like concrete outline drawings or stuff like that. So we'll disable that. You can specify your own style sheet as well. So if you have your own CSS file, you can browse to your CSS file here. Again, if you have your own SVG file for markers, symbols, and patterns, you can use the one that come out of the box as a template, and then you can build your own. In fact, I think the latest version of Inkscape has this. So let's try this out because I'm very curious. The latest Inkscape supposedly has a marker editor. So I wonder if I can go to if I go over here and if I don't know, let's try open up markers. I wonder. Let's just draw a random line. And if I edit the style, oh, curious. I thought I would be able to pick from my markers defined in the file. Because this file, yeah, you can see all the markers here. Break line marker, section marker. I'm just wondering if there's a nice, easy way to graphically edit this. Alternatively, you can just draw one and then copy paste the XML code and put it inside a marker tag. See, this marker tag just has a group of paths, so you just put it inside there. But I just wonder if there is a nice graphical way of doing it. Don't know what these things are. See, edit on canvas. Well, what's this guy? Style. How does this work? Oh my, that's really weird. It's cropping my view. I can't see the whole thing. It's probably because of my my window manager. Unfortunately, I'd have to switch window managers to get that dialog box to show up. Anyway, sorry, I got a little distracted there. The point is that everything is customizable that you'd expect to be customizable. Just that it's not very friendly to customize right now. So, I know Chun is there listening into the conversation. Yeah, you're probably listening to the conversation in the background. Anyway, what else? What else have I missed? What else can I cover? Visibility, drawing references, sheets, scale, shading, shadows, underlays, line works, annotations on top, different ways of using the CAD tool, even though it crashed, to draw things, how to specify styles, schedules, yeah, and how it selects geometry. I think that's it, actually.
So, Dion, Peter here. How can we as users contribute to help you?
Find bugs.
And where do you want them in the GitHub, or you mentioned also? I have, from my point of view, I have a feeling we need a lot of documentation even to manage to do the testing.
Yes.
You mentioned wiki. By wiki, you're referring to the OSArch wiki.
That's right. There's a couple of pages already there, which are right now very out of date, but they have helped a lot of people in the past, so it'd be good to update it.
So basically what we're saying is anything we try to document or try to ask questions about, except for bugs, which we will place directly on GitHub, we put on a wiki page or a set of wiki pages.
That's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the bugs will really help. The more questions, the more, how do I do this? And then the more you pester me, the better. It's just, I stare at it so long. I kind of try to get enough of the foundations there, which I think the foundations are kind of there, like the basic features of it. It's a bit glitchy. The usability is a bit terrible, still clunky, but at least it's some of the foundations are there.
Mm-hmm.
The more you ask questions, the better.
The would it be the example file you've showed us now?
Yeah, that's available.
That's from.
So, clunk, 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 clunk. Oh, there we go. Hidden somewhere in here. I attached it in one of these. Who knows if I'm going to find it ever again. 164 left to check out. Yeah, because I think Ryan asked the same thing. He said, "Can you send me the sample file?" And I threw it in. It's a pretty old sample file. Hey. One of the big issues I'm trying to solve is trying to get this working. So you can see how if I go into an east elevation, this wall has a line there compared to that wall. So obviously you wouldn't draw a line there, right? It shouldn't exist. But the way the geometry works is that it goes, hey, it's an edge of a wall. I better draw a line there. But it's not smart enough to know that these two walls are connected with the same material, and therefore the architectural convention is such that you don't draw a line there. So that's one of the big issues, which I think is preventing doing basic small scale drawings like this. It's a big showstopper. So especially things like that, you can see how there's a nice empty white space because those walls are all joined, whereas right now you can't do that, which is a shame. I mean, it still gets the point across. I mean, the guy on site will probably glare at you, but he'll understand. He'll still understand it. But it's oh, there we are. Here's a sample file. I will paste a link in the chat. Except for rendering styles, yes, everything round trips. Everything is pure native IFC, so it all round trips as long as you have the SVG files on your computer. If I give you an IFC file, so if you download this IFC file, you don't have my SVG files. You may not have all my styles. Therefore, if you won't get the sheets because you don't have my sheets. You'll probably have to recreate the sheets on your computer. You also won't. The schedule won't work for you because you don't have my spreadsheet. But if I gave you the spreadsheet as well, I think it's stored as a relative path, so it should just work. Then yes, you'll get the full package. Oh, sorry. This is a more. Oh no, that's another random sample file. I thought that was a more up-to-date one. Anyway, so that's the current state of things. So, oh, well, there you go. Here's some random guy's model. Sorry, not random guy if you're here, but a random model I tested out, and you can see it cuts the plan. It was a bit of an incomplete model. He didn't have a ground or anything, and that's some roller shutter doors with a lot of geometry in them. But yeah, it does work. This is a facade model, so it's missing all the internals because it's just a facade model from one of Ryan's projects. So if you give it the data, it does work. You can see that this one comes from Revit, so it doesn't have those dedicated 2D symbols. So the 2D representations are pretty dense. Look at that bush. It's got like every leaf or something like that. It goes pretty crazy. But of course, if you had the 2D symbols, then it would be much lighter and would look a lot more presentable. Yeah, I haven't touched it since May 15th, it seems. I've just been so busy with other things. Cool. Yeah, anything else? If not, that's okay. Just keep on posting bugs and stuff, and I will get around to them. I've just been so busy. My recent focuses has been Federation, and I want to rebuild BIM Tester to support IDS. So that's been a huge amount of work that's been going on.
Since you mentioned it, Dion, totally different question, but related to Federation and not to drawings, but clash testing. I've never run clash in BlenderBIM. Can you federate models, or by linking other models and do a clash on all of them? I'm thinking.
Yes, absolutely. So I can show that very quickly. So if I go and load up, I don't need to load up a project, but just visually, I'll just load one up. So let's get, sure, let's get electrical model up. There it is. Yep, so just hide all the spaces. So great, here's a bunch of electrical. Other model. So if I go into links and I will link in, let's say, a plumbing model. So grab the plumbing model and link that in. So that's my plumbing model. And let's just hide everything with space in the name. So great. So now we have plumbing and we have electrical. And I'll go into collaboration. No. Quality control, clash. Okay, so we'll add a clash set. So this is one set of clash results, and say, let's say this is elect vs plumbing, and we'll have the first one be plumbing, and the second one be electrical. And you can put in filters and all that, but for now, I'll just say clash everything, nice and easy. And I'll just say execute clash. We'll save that as test.bcf, and it will think, and think. Oh, taking a while. Hey, look at that. Okay, it's done. It's finished. So now that's saved my test.bcf. I can go up to the, see, I lose things, BCF. So we'll load my test.bcf. There you go. Today, just 1 minute ago, we'll load that. And I can see there are 3 issues. I have a pipe clashing with a lamp, another pipe clashing with a lamp, and a pipe clashing with a, oh, I need to improve this UI, don't I? With a duplex receptacle off-C GFCI, whatever that is. I'm not a services guy. So this has a viewpoint. We can click on that viewpoint. So there you go. It's always at the center of the view. It's selected one object because that's from the electrical model, because that's the one I've loaded in my file. So yeah, so that's the clash. You can see that indeed this pipe is going through this linear box ceiling light. And we'll view the other one. So there we go. Here's another one. I guess there you go. They're next to each other, aren't they? You just fix one pipe, you fix both of them. I think maybe there's clash grouping somewhere. Clash manager, clash results. Okay, I didn't build this, so I don't know actually how it works. But apparently there's like a way of grouping them by distances and stuff like that. Anyway, so let's view the third one. Ooh, okay, so this guy is clashing, barely. Yeah, look at that intersection. Barely clashing with that pipe. They'll fix it on site for that one. And yeah, that's your list of clashes, and that's with 2 models. And you can add as many models as you want and many filters as you want. So yeah, it's totally up to you.
So again, basically for making use of more documentation.
yeah, and there's a ton of usability issues. Like, for example, one usability issue I'd say is that it only highlights one of the clashed objects, just because the other one technically is in a separate file, so it doesn't quite yet know that how to select it. So I need to build a feature that lets it parse indices from linked files, parse IDs from linked files, and therefore it can select both. It can color code them and yada yada. Because BCF can do all that. It can color code and set your camera view and set transparency and all that. So we should, like, the things that people expect from other Clash viewers that we should have is just more work, just more time, just more stuff to code. What do you mean? Like, yeah, correct. You need to type in IFC flow segment. In this case, is 2x3, clashing with whatever. Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I thought, didn't you build a feature like that already? I thought, there's one way I can think of, which is, there we go. So this model has 2 things. Right? That's the easiest way I can think of doing it. It's very fast. But yeah, and then you'd have a little checkbox and you'd say, yeah, rather than this terrible, terrible interface. Yeah. Yeah, and it'd be good to be a pop-up this way, like a little filter button, then it pops up, then you can set it all. I think it'll be a lot nicer experience. And that filter button feature can be used everywhere that this type of query is used, right? And then you can have for advanced users, they can select their own, or for regular users who just want the dialogue and basic class filtering, they can do that. Yeah, correct. You would need to load the ISC file, and then you would start running into memory issues. So maybe you'd find a way to pre-compute. I'm not sure. It depends how big they are. Like these are tiny models. You can load all these models in with no problem. But as you know, clashes usually happen on huge models, and then you start getting issues. Although I am very happy to say that I have got it working on huge models, like gigabytes of IFC data, all loaded at once. It's pretty exciting. Just viewing, not authoring, but that was a very good milestone, because previously you couldn't do that. Like there was only one tool which could do it that was open source, which was ZeoKit, and that's an online one which requires a bit of pre-processing, and it's pretty technical. So finally, now that this feature is here, I'm pretty excited. Radio. Anything else? If not, that's okay. I mean, I'm always around anyway, so you know where to find me when things don't work, and let's keep them going. Keep on hacking. Keep on hacking away. One feature at a time, one commit at a time. Okay, I did promise. I'm not sure how to pronounce your alias there, Palawan, to debug your issue. So if you want to share that.
Yeah, that's good, man. You pronounced it correctly. Thanks.
Very good. Awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll just share my screen, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
Can you see my screen?
Not yet.